Hey everyone and welcome to today's video. Since there will probably be a ton of regular reviews on this, today we are going to take a specific look at the performance and efficiency of the brand new MSI Claw 8X AI Plus with the new Intel Arc G3 Extreme APU across all available wattage or TDP stages between 8 and 35 watt, meaning we are going to see how it performs like at 8, 10, 13, 15 or 20 watts, etc. Which areas are the most efficient, and if it maybe makes sense to adjust this manually if needed. What's inside here is basically a Panther Lake laptop CPU optimized for handhelds with 14 cores and the powerful Intel Arc B390 iGPU. We're also going to compare all of that to the AMD Ryzen 9 AI Max Plus 395 and its Radeon 8060S. And we'll also see how changing the TDP on this device affects battery life. In the case of the MSI Claw, you can actually adjust all of this very comfortably and quickly via the quick menu settings button over here. The short-term PL2 power consumption is always 2 watts higher than the long-term PL1 here. First, let's look at the results from 3D Mark Firestrike across all selectable TDPs from 8 up to 35 watt and compare that to the AI Max Plus 395, which however can boost all the way up to around 80 watt. Just like with the Panther Lake laptop CPUs, Intel is ahead here up to around 23 to 25 watt. Now, this is just a synthetic test, but it looks pretty similar in real games, as you'll see in a bit. The maximum on the MSI Claw X with the G3 Extreme is around 13,110 points here, which is almost one by one the performance of a gaming laptop with a GTX 1660 Ti released back in 2019, or about 20% more than the performance of an RTX 3050 laptop. And that's at a combined wattage of only 30 to 35 watts for the chip. Meanwhile, AMD's Ryzen AI Max Plus already reaches 16,300 points at 35 watt. You can already see quite well here that at the lowest available 8 watt, the efficiency isn't particularly good yet. But at 9 watts, there's a big jump, which is also reflected in the points per watt graph. For the G3 Extreme, this is significantly better than the competition from AMD, especially in the 10 to 20 watt range that is so very important for gaming handhelds like this. If you take a look at how much battery life in minutes we roughly get with the individual TDP stages, we can see that even at 18 watt we still get just under 180 minutes, so 3 hours of battery life. At 13 watt it's even 4 hours, and at 10 watt a solid 5 hours. Down here in the blue bars, we can see the FPS we still get with that in Shadow of the Tomb Raider on high settings in Full HD without any upscaling. Specifically in this scene right here, which I've already used multiple times for these tests in the past, the red bars here represent the total power draw of the system in battery mode at the respective CPU wattage. Because aside from the APU or CPU with the GPU, the device obviously still needs more power for the screen, the SSD, the motherboard, speakers, Wi-Fi, etc. So at a TDP of 12 watts for the chip, you get a total power draw of around 20 watts, which with the 80 watt-hour battery of the MSI Claw 8X AI Plus leads to pretty much exactly 240 minutes or 4 hours. Easy to calculate. 80 watt-hours divided by 20 watt equals 4, so it's 4 hours. However, way more than 5 hours are definitely possible here. If you cap very simple and lightweight games like the platformer Limbo or emulators to 30 FPS and choose the endurance mode in the quick menu instead of the manual 8 watt, the CPU wattage actually can drop down to 2 to 4 watt, which allows for a total power draw of the system of only around 6 to 8 watt. And that means almost 10 hours of battery life and more, and that is a lot. I actually tested this with Limbo myself, and it actually lasted a whopping 12.5 hours before the battery was empty. I do have to mention though that at least as of right now, some very slight fluctuations occurred in the lower watt ranges, so they couldn't always be maintained by the system 100% exactly as configured. But in the long-term average, that shouldn't really matter. For Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we also see in a direct comparison with the competition from the AI Max Plus 395 that Intel wins the race up to around 27 watt and achieves playable FPS even with low TDPs at good battery runtimes. Mind you, in this case on high settings without any upscaling. In my video about the Panther Lake chip, I've already shown that the AMD Z2 Extreme is left completely without a chance here. In principle, Intel positions itself with the Arc G3 Extreme somewhere between the AMD Z2 Extreme and the AMD AI Max Plus 395 and its 8060S, both performance-wise and probably price-wise as well. But the advantage here is just very clearly in the low TDP segment that is so critical for handhelds. If you can let the chips run wild with full power, the more expensive AMD chip just pulls away uncontrollably. The AMD competition simply scales all the way up to 60 to 65 watt here and achieves around 65% more FPS in those ranges than the G3 Extreme at 35 watt. At 18 watt, for example, the Intel chip, on the other hand, is ahead by a whopping 30%. If we look at the breakdown in the FPS per watt graph, it becomes obvious once again that Intel clearly has the lead here in the low wattage segment, only to hand over the lead to AMD starting from around 28 watt. But I think the vast majority of you guys will mostly want to play on the go at around 10 to 20 watt anyway. And more than 25 watts doesn't make much sense in most cases anyhow, especially when the power supply isn't plugged in. I repeated the test in Baldurs Gate 3 at 1200p with medium settings and XeSS on quality, and overall the curve looks pretty similar here, though we already get playable results starting at just 10 watt, which would result in a 5-hour runtime. And if you want 60 FPS, you'd still get just around under 3 hours at 18 watt. In this example, it only scales up to around 32 watts, and after that, not at all anymore. Maybe the CPU is already the bottleneck here at 95 FPS for Baldurs Gate 3. For the sake of completeness, let's also take a quick look at the Cinebench R23 multi-core results compared to the Ryzen AI 9 Max Plus. While it pulls away especially in the upper range with its 12 cores and 24 threads, it seems to be overwhelmed at lower wattages here, probably just due to the sheer number of threads for the AMD chip. Meaning it's a pretty similar picture to what we saw in the gaming benchmarks. I really think that Intel delivered with the G3 Extreme and developed an awesome chip that is a real noticeable improvement over existing chips, and it's very efficient. In the end, it obviously comes down to personal preference, the available handhelds, and most importantly, of course, your wallet. Because devices with 32 gigabytes of RAM like this one are just painfully expensive right now, as you might know. And generally, newer handhelds aren't exactly cheap anyway. But regardless of performance and efficiency, I just briefly have to really say here that MSI really learned their lesson with the newest Claw and absolutely delivers. The buttons, the triggers, everything just feels so damn good. The D-pad sounds and feels amazing. The shoulder buttons are very good, the buttons as well. That wasn't always the case in the past. The device is light, yet comes with a big screen and a big battery, and the haptics are still simply top-notch. All in all, it's absolutely a mega handheld from a pure feeling perspective. It is really a ton of fun to sit on the couch and game with it, and actually quite a bit more so than with some other smaller 7-inch devices. I also find it pleasantly quiet, even under full load. I mean, it's hearable, but it's really doable. I also clearly have to state that the performance is overall very similar, partly identical to my Panther Lake laptop tests, meaning my videos on this topic, like these right here, are pretty representative of the expected performance, and I'll link them down in the description as well. What I simply like about these handhelds in general, in contrast to desktop PCs and now with the G3 Extreme in the MSI Claw, is that you get better and better performance with a consistent low wattage or wattage range. And that's how it actually should be, in my opinion. Not adding 50 to 100 watts every year just to pump out GPUs with now 400 to 500 watts. Looking at you, Nvidia. And that's already it for today's video. I hope you guys were able to pull a useful piece of information or two out of this. Feel free to leave a subscription. And efficiency tests like this will definitely keep coming in the future, like for example for the G3 non-extreme version of this chip, and of course more content around handhelds, laptops, mini PCs and some other stuff around that. Thanks as well for watching all the way to the very end. A tiny little like would be amazing. See you next time, bye bye and tschüss.